Okay, team, returning to our normal programming here. Society convinces us to think like slaves. I went on vacation a few months back, and I realized that on vacation, I was worried that I wasn't creating content, that I wasn't moving the ball forward on my business. And I'm an entrepreneur, I'm ambitious at that. And I realized that I became an entrepreneur to be more free. But now here I am sitting like the perfect slave who feels guilty for not working, for not being productive. And I was thinking about the world and at society at that moment. And I realized that there's like basically this universal mode of operation in America. And that is we work, 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 work. And then we escape work to some kind of pleasure, to some kind of revelry or comfort. And the whole time, we're kind of like anticipating going back to work. And this is the most slavish mindset out there. Now, before anyone starts attacking me in the comments here, this video is not condemning hard work. It is about changing our perspective, changing our worldview to more of the aristocratic principles of vitality, leisure, and excellence. And this is a far better way to go through life. When I'm talking about being an aristocrat or being a slave in this video, I am talking about being an aristocrat of the soul and applying some of Friedrich Nietzsche's worldview about the master morality versus the slave morality. Friedrich Nietzsche was the most prolific philosopher of the 1900s, and he sought to elevate that which makes humanity most healthy and spiritually alive. He saw us descending into the era of what he called the last man, where the herd morality or the slave morality would smother all greatness and noble feelings within mankind. And I think that is happening today. Welcome back to Wisdom Warriors. I'm Christian. Let's dive into it. So let's begin at vitality. Vitality is the first principle of the aristocrat of the soul, and I can't overemphasize that. To understand Nietzsche's noble man or aristocratic morality, we need to understand physiology. Because how we think, how we feel, and how we moralize is a direct consequence of our biological energy, of the vitality of the organism. When you're in a weak, exhausted, and distressed state, it feels like life is happening to you. You seek self-preservation and the release from struggle. But when you have high vitality, high thumos and energy, you're not seeking the release from struggle, you're actually seeking out challenge itself. For glory's sake, your entire worldview shifts drastically. And we see this culturally and personally. A youthful, a vigorous culture is seeking the expansion of its power. It's seeking the cultivation of flourishing, while an old, decrepit, a distressed culture is merely seeking self-preservation. Healthy life versus distressed life. Let me paint this picture for you. Healthy life is kind of like a lion chilling out in the sun. He's well fed, he's well fucked, and he's lounging like the king of his kingdom. Healthy life is relaxed, okay? And it's full of vitality, it's full of energy, therefore it's full of power. Distressed life, on the other hand, is living from a center of fear, of exhaustion, of scarcity. And because of this, it's always needing to be in motion, looking for the next meal, watching out for predators, watching out for potential rivals, always kind of pacing around, overthinking. And let's look at healthy life versus distressed life through the lens of hormones. This is so revealing about a secret of life. And that is, distressed life is cortisol centric. It lives from a place of dysregulation. Look at our society. People run on dysregulation, on high cortisol. They wake up, they instantly drink coffee, they force themselves into a job, their foot's always tapping, they're like, go, go, go. And then they kind of release from this in their captivity of their apartments or wherever they live. And when we live with dysregulation, cortisol is the main hormone that we are living on. And cortisol is very interesting because it actually saps vitality from the musculature, from the extremities, and like concentrates everything on just survival, on fight or flight. And this leads to long-term deterioration, a catabolic state when we are cortisol centric. Testosterone-centric life, on the other hand, prioritizes regulation, meaning coming back to places of peace, not letting attachments and worries and desires in your mind always make you dysregulated and frantic. A testosterone-centric life prioritizes things like sun, steel, rest, action, eating like really solid meals. Meat and fruit has been very helpful for me. But ultimately, it is about regulation. The more regulated you are, and the more in balance you are, in tune with the natural cycles of the day, with the rhythm of your biology, the more your testosterone increases, the more your vitality increases, and the more you go into an anabolic state, which is actually building. An aristocratic morality or an aristocratic lifestyle would have prioritized a testosterone-centric life, meaning an aristocrat of ancient Greece would have wanted to appear unruffled at all times. He would have been lounging in symposium and then basically training for war. And there was a couple values, there was a couple virtues back in ancient Greece that display this kind of wisdom. One being arete, which is excellence, moral excellence, physical excellence, intellectual excellence, and that was their primary virtue. The second one was andreia, which was manliness, which was an expression of testosterone in combat. And the third one was phronesis, which was wisdom in counsel and wisdom in practical affairs, essentially managing your world to have the most efficient energy flow and most abundant leisure possible. And it's interesting is I say these kinds of things and so many people are going to run to the comments and be like, oh, this is not possible in the modern world, blah, blah, blah. And that's your slave mindset coming out right there. Is you are literally making a virtue of your dysregulation instead of trying to find ways to live a regulated testosterone vitality-centric life. And as you move more towards the latter, something very magical happens. In the sense of most people are constantly deteriorating their energy. Therefore, they're getting further away from an instinctual, vital life. And because of that, they go deeper into scarcity and deeper into fear. Oh, they get a pile of money behind them. Great. Now they have all this attachment and fear about losing it and always trying to create more and work harder and manage this very fragile existence that they're creating for themselves. When you take a testosterone-centric path in life, the aristocratic way, what happens is each day you are increasing your regulation and increasing your vitality a little bit more. You're increasing your will to power in life. And in this, you actually become more attuned to your natural instincts. And your natural instincts are strong towards maybe creating videos like this, towards building things in the world, towards mastering new spaces. And as your vitality increases, your network, your opportunities, your resources, your mastery of life also increases, meaning that you don't rely on external security in the future. You rely on internal security as you move forward. And this is something that builds with you as you live in tune with the aristocratic, cultivation of energy. Life becomes more lucky. Life becomes more powerful, and you become even more in tune with your nature, with your essence, and with your instincts, to the point where life actually feels more effortless. I want to read you a quote from Nietzsche to whet the appetite here before we dive into a longer quote. And that is, a living thing seeks above all to discharge its strength. Life itself is the will to power. Self-preservation is only one of the indirect and most frequent results. Self-preservation comes from a place of having high cortisol. So you want to preserve what you have and then also just seek comfort, seek escape from the stress or distress. And a lot of people think, the will to survive, self-preservation is the strongest instinct within humanity. And these people are wrong, because heroic men in war, mothers in childbirth, martyrs, and so many other people display this will to literally sacrifice themselves as an expression of power, as an exertion of their strength into the world. And we actually see this with great inventors and scientists and men of substance and artists all over the world and all across time, is they're literally killing themselves for their craft. They're destroying themselves for this love. So the instinct towards self-preservation isn't strong. It's actually the will to power that's strong. And when your will to power is weak, when you're full of weak feelings and exhaustion and stress, all you want is comfort and self-preservation, you can't even aspire towards the more lofty qualities and lofty values that the aristocrat would have striven for. Healthy life versus distressed life seeks two very different things. Healthy life seeks the mastery of open space, the exertion of its strength into the world. We can think of people like Bruce Lee, Francis Bacon, Alexander the Great, Napoleon. Like, these two conquerors looked across the landscape, the frontiers, and were like, I'm going to go claim this. Francis Bacon took this perusal of all the knowledge and sciences in the West and was like, I'm going to lay a system through this. Bruce Lee was like, this space of martial arts, I want to express my vitality. I want to express my honest emotional content into this field seeking mastery. Distressed life seeks comfort, pleasure, and self-preservation. These two different modes of operating reflect the two different types of human beings. And also, it reflects Nietzsche's slave morality versus master morality that he transcribed in the genealogy of morals. And this is one of the most interesting things in this video. Nietzsche said, I was given a pointer in the right direction by the question as to what the terms for good, as used in different languages, mean from the etymological point of view. Then I found that they all led me back to the same conceptual transformation, that everywhere, noble, aristocratic, in social terms, is the basic concept from which necessarily good, in the sense of spiritually noble, aristocratic, of spiritually high-mindedness, spiritually privileged, developed. A development that always runs parallel with that other one, which ultimately transfers common, plebeian, low, into the concept bad. The best example for the latter is the German word schlecht, bad itself, which is identical with schlicht, plain, simple, and originally referred to the simple, the common man, with no derogatory implication, but simply in contrast to the nobility. So one reason Nietzsche was so prolific was that he pointed out that there was two entirely different modes of thinking and feeling about life, two different entirely moral systems. One is the master or aristocratic moral system, and one is the slave or plebeian moral system. And in the past 2,000 years, the slave morality has seized power, has risen to ascendancy in the West. And this becomes very obvious if we just look at some of the most powerful virtues or values of, a place like America. In America, we're brought up with a very distinct value system that honors hard work, kindness, and comfort. And this is evidence if we look at the lives of almost everyone. We admire people who work hard, people like even entrepreneurs like Alex Hormozy, who put in like 13-hour days. I remember in high school, we would compete to see who stayed up the latest doing their homework. You were seen as the most virtuous person, right? Because you were working hard. The second virtue is kindness. I recently went to a high school graduation ceremony for my sister. And at that ceremony, there was about 5 speeches in a row about kindness, about how the thing you most need in this world is being more kind. If we're all just more kind, life would be so much better. And I was so freaking astonished and frustrated at this slave morality being preached to all of these like malleable minds. It's like, we don't need more people pleasing. You think kindness is going to get you through the trials and tribulations of life? How about we have a speech about courage, about honor, about integrity, about almost any other virtue other than kindness? It's amazing to me how we just push this slave morality as if it's like God's law, when in reality, most kindness is people-pleasing, and most kindness is because people lack claws. As Nietzsche once said in one of his most pointed lines, in their hearts, they simply want one thing most of all, that no one hurt them. Thus do they anticipate everyone's wishes and do well unto everyone. That, however, is cowardice, though it be called virtue. I have often laughed at the weaklings who thought themselves so good because they had no claws. You see, slaves need to be hardworking, kind, and then they seek comfort. This is what slaves value, and they push it onto other slaves. This is why people compete to work the hardest and make hard work a virtue. It's because they're a slave in their own mind. Of course, the slaves are going to try to outcompete each other of, hey, I worked the hardest today, bro. I'm the most dysregulated. I'm in the most catabolic state possible. And of course, I'm going to be kind to everyone because I'm scared of what you're going to think if I tell you the truth. And then after I work so hard all day and exhaust all my vital energies on things that don't matter, I'm just going to go seek comfort, seek release, masturbate to pornography in my tiny little cage of captivity. We're living as slaves. We're living out the slave morality. And the aristocratic morality was so damn different. You see, hard work wasn't valued. Anyone could do that. Hard work was common. What was valued was excellence. The same thing with comfort. Comfort was seen as a danger. Security, safety, these things were seen as dangers because they diminished the will to power in people. They made you soft. They made you weak. An aristocrat would have sought out hardship, would have sought out glorious combat or hunts or long adventures and piracy on the oceans. The aristocrat didn't value these soft things like kindness. He would have been brought up to shoot straight and tell the truth. You see, in ancient Greece, and ancient Persia, the value system would have actually prioritized carelessness over caution. It would have prioritized truthfulness over kindness in all ways. You see, in order to tell the truth, as I was saying, you actually need to have the personal power and carelessness to not be seeking your own advantage. You see, slaves, peasants, plebeians across all of time were mistrusted. Why were they mistrusted? Is because they were seen as common, and common people were seen as bad because common people follow the common morality of seeking advantage. They have a utilitarian moral perspective, meaning that which decreases suffering and that which increases pleasure is good. That which increases my personal gain is good. This is the common utilitarian moral perspective. Ask yourself, do you hold this moral perspective? Do your neighbors hold this moral perspective? I bet 95% of people in America are utilitarians, meaning they just want to decrease suffering in the world and increase their personal pleasure. And this matters of pain and pleasure were of second-rate considerations for aristocrats across all of time. They didn't really care for, is this going to cause me suffering or is this going to cause me pleasure? It was more so, is this beautiful? Is this a stroke in the great work of art that is my life? You see, the aristocrat is living for a glorious beauty. He's trying to turn his life into a work of art. He is not trying to live to maximize his animalistic well-being and decrease the suffering in the world. He's trying to make life into a masterpiece. And this is a totally different moral outlook than the slave moral outlook that we all hold of, oh, is this going to make me feel better? Is this going to mitigate my suffering or mitigate the suffering of my family? And then Nietzsche and the aristocratic worldview is like, how can we affirm suffering instead of trying to fix it? It's not about trying to suffer less and just feel better. It's like, hey, we all are going to have to face things. We're going to have to face the tragedies of life. And there is this more heroic mindset that can actually affirm the tragedies of life, that it can affirm the pain, the pleasure, all the different notes of emotions and physical discomfort as something beautiful, as something good, because it's part of a larger orchestra. It's part of a larger story. And that is the aristocratic mindset. It's almost a zoomed out perspective that is living for something beautiful. Yeah. So just to recap here, I'm not trying to bag on kindness or hard work or comfort. We need these things in moderation, of course. But what I am trying to reorient us to is the fact that what is at the top of the hierarchy of values in the modern world has drastically changed. And we have adopted this slave morality, or the morality of the last man that Nietzsche warned against. And this is not helping make us healthier in any way. In fact, this is the consequence of living in a state of distressed life, where we are promoting the values and virtues of slaves. Crazy Crazy to think about, but maybe I'm just a conspiracy theorist here, huh? I'm Christian. Thanks for watching Wisdom Warriors. If you guys want to talk to me one-on-one, I'm looking for entrepreneurs. I'm looking for builders. I'm looking for men on a mission who are living with high thumos, who want to join my men's community. Got a great community. I'm looking for founding members out there. So if that's you, link in the description to talk to me one-on-one. If that's not you, check out this video about making your life into a piece of living art. Go live dangerously today, my friends. Cheers.